I'm Katie Dolgov, Exhibitions Manager and Registrar at Oceanside Museum of Art. I'm here in our newest exhibition, Southern California Contemporary Quilts, standing next to this gorgeous artwork by Marty Ornish. I had the pleasure of chatting with her and taking a look around her studio last week. I hope you enjoy. All right, I am so excited to be here today with one of the amazing artists from our current exhibition, Southern California Contemporary Quilts, Marty Ornish, and we're going to take a look at Marty's studio today. Marty, hello, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm very good today. Nice to see you again.
Wonderful, nice to see you too. So, Marty, let's get started. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us how you got started making art.
Well, I grew up in a sewing family. My mom and grandmother worked in sewing factories, really sweatshops.
Oh.
And so sewing was always part of my life. And I fooled around with art quilts. I appreciate vintage quilts, but I never wanted to make one. Maybe because there's so many made in my family. And so I tried to think, what else can I make that's not an art quilt that I haven't seen made before? And I had in my cabinet some really old damaged quilts that I'd collected at yard sales, thrift stores. And I thought, I'm going to make a gigantic dress. It just was something I wanted to try out. And so that's really what launched me into becoming an artist. I don't think I considered myself an artist till 2013 when I had my first exhibit ever at Visions. I was part of an upcycled project, and they gave me a name tag that said artist, and it was actually shocking, but fun. And now I am an artist.
You absolutely are an artist. You're an incredible artist who makes some gorgeous fashion art pieces that are really unique in our exhibition. Your artwork is really unique in our exhibition. But here we are in your studio. I'd love to get a quick look of your creative space. So let's take a look around there and see what you're like in your home studio.
Okay, we're all in our home studios these
It's
days.
true. I'm in my home studio too.
You'll get to see all my secrets here.
Oh, wow.
I collect a lot of things. I love textiles.
Yes, tell us about your storage. You have a lot in here, so it must be a challenge to stay organized.
Well, when I moved from sewing in my living room, that's where I started out. When we had lots of people living with us, into this big bedroom, I bought this big chest of drawers that was just panned over, and I got them on Craigslist, and that really helped me get organized. So inside of those big doors are lots of shelves and pull-out drawers, and I'm able to keep all of my treasures, I call them treasures, in there by category. So I have fabric by genre, by color, by type. I have a fabulous collection. I'll hold this up. But I think you're
Old
seeing
lace.
of old lace. And
Wow.
so I collect anything that's vintage, that's a textile, and keep it in its perfect little spot in my either cabinets. I also have a big bar that used to be handrail, and I put it at the top of the room on one side of my sewing studio, and suspended from that are all these different embellishments, trims, lace, and anything that's a textile is hanging up there that I get in quantity. And then when I'm in the middle of a project, I'll glance up there and go, oh, that's what I need to add. So I like having it out to see, but I can't have everything I have out to see. But the trims I particularly like having a few of. And then in one of the cabinet drawers, there's lots of bins, and I have in there my snaps, my twill tape, elastic, glue, anything that I use like that. So I know exactly where to go to get that.
All carefully labeled, right?
And they're all pretty well labeled. I've gotten
Good.
better over time. And then on another wall, I have my books and I have my thread collection, and I have those by color as
Oh,
well as
nice.
instructions and the type of thread. So my thread collection is really important because everything I make is stitched together.
Uh-huh.
And
And you have a couple of closets where you keep you sent me some images that maybe we can get a look at, some closets where you keep all of your clothing that you work with.
yes, I have taken over one of my guest rooms, and that entire closet is where I keep my wearable art. So I make covers for each dress or ensemble.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's, if a hat's involved, it's in a big box. And so I have all of those in one place. They're pretty well labeled. So if something is going to go to an exhibit, I can pull it out and find it and get it sent on its way.
Oh,
It
cool.
does take wearable art,
Hmm.
takes up a lot of space.
Yes, wearable art is big because it's all human sized. So yeah, it's really awesome that you have a couple of extra spaces, an extra room where you can use the closet space there. So actually, as we were panning through your studio, I saw some cool dresses over in the corner. Is that what you're working on right now, or tell us about your current projects?
Yeah, I tend to work on three things at a time. I only have two mannequins available at the moment. And so right now I am finishing up a quilt dress, the one that says, "Now I lay me down to sleep."
Hmm.
And I've been working on that for probably 3 months. And I have only two snaps left to attach, and that is all finished. And I really
Congratulations.
like it. Yeah, I had a lot of my grandmother and mother's hand embroidery work, and it, like everyone else, it was carefully kept in a cabinet.
Hmm.
And I decided it was time to emancipate those embroideries. And so I've hand stitched them. I back them with black fabric, and then I hand embroidered them in kind of a big, bold way over this entire quilt. And as
Wow.
usual, this is a zero waste designed dress. So I had just tiny bits of this quilt left when I finished making the dress. The blouse underneath is upcycled, and I added embellishments to it. And then I made sort of a pinafore or a bib that
Hmm.
goes over it. And I just loved this embroidery. It was never finished. And to me, that makes it more exciting than had somebody finish that embroidery. So I
Hmm.
left the needle and the thread as it was.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And what about the quilt or the dress right next to it? It looks like it's got a little more ways to go.
I have a long way left to do this. This is a hand project. And actually, this other dress was almost all handwork. But I had this really ruined wedding ring quilt. They're usually the ones that have been washed the most and used the most. And someone gave me, if you can pan up, these hanks of embroidery thread. And they were chopped off from some sort of factory.
Mm.
and and I had this whole box of those threads given to me. And when I was looking for a project that I could take on the road again, because I just finished my last road trip project, I thought, wow, I'm just going to start stitching these threads all over parts of the wedding ring. And you can see how damaged the quilt is.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to hide the damage. I like people to see the real age of the quilts I use. But I like this idea of creating this shaggy thread work instead of what I've done before. Every quilt dress I make is a new technique, is something I haven't done before. And it's also a way to use up what is given to me or I find at a yard sale. And this could turn into a cape. It's a possibility. I don't know yet where it is headed.
I love it. So it sounds like you're kind of inspired by the materials you have, the materials you run across. Is that what you would say inspires you, or what are your other inspirations?
Well, I get I get inspired by history. So I'm a history buff, and I love old-fashioned fashions. I think the 1890s is probably my favorite era, the 1920s and the 1940s. I love those designs, but I don't want to copy anyone. So when I make a new garment, mostly it is driven by the amount of quilt or textile I have. So I can't go get two matching quilts, although that happened this year. That's really rare. And so that restricts me, and that's what kind of drives the creativity. That's the fun part for me. I have a whole stack of old quilts, and I might look at them for 5 years and go, and then one day I'll wake up in the morning and I have this very clear idea. That's the textile for my next project. And I'll have a sense of what it might be, but by the end of each design, it's completely different than what I thought, because it's material driven. It just tells me what it needs to do.
That's really exciting. I love that. It's a discovery process for you, and then it's a discovery process for the viewer. So what are some of your favorite techniques for getting those quilts together?
So I think the thing that has helped me the most in the last couple of years is my serger. It's right here. That was a game changer when I acquired a serger, because I can cut off, losing a very tiny bit of fabric, the edge of a quilt or a doily, and then I use a kind of butt jointed seam, and it's called a faggot stitch on my sewing machine, and I can put two edges of a quilt together so that it's not lumpy. When you're
That's
sewing
nice.
quilts, you know, most people sew 2 layers of fabric together. I'm sewing 6 layers of fabric together at a minimum. And so that's been a great technique for making my dresses, and so they lay on the body in a nice way. And then I do a lot of hand embroidery, hand stitching for all the details, and I really like doing the handwork. But I have to pace myself because I do have some hand issues. And so I like to do a combination of the machine sewing and the handwork.
Yeah, I really love seeing handwork on quilts. It makes it look like just a ton of energy and love and care has gone into it. Not that every quilt looks like it has a ton of energy and love and care, but those tiny details that you can see that someone spent those meticulous hours making that handwork on there. It's incredible. So tell us a little bit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Marty.
I wanted to say also, handwork isn't ever perfect, or in my view, shouldn't be perfect. And that's what's really fun about making the dresses. I'm meticulous about my sewing and how things are constructed, but I also like to have everything a little wabi-sabi. And I like, machines can embroider, they can do all sorts of things now, but it almost looks like it's commercially made, it's made in a factory. I want things to show the human hand. And I think that's one of the things that draws me to the vintage fabrics, is you see the human hand in that work. And I really love that.
That's right. It makes every single piece very unique. Like, you can't reproduce handwork. It's always unique. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the dress that is in Southern California Contemporary Quilts. How did you come up with that beautiful dress? And we'll show some images of the dress for the viewers.
So that dress was a result of me getting really tired of making denim jackets and upcycling. And I had a collection of old quilts that I'd been thinking about for quite a while, and thought, I really want to sew something out of them. And in 2013, when I made that, there weren't that many people using vintage quilts and artwork. And I also wanted to make something I hadn't seen ever before. So I actually did a little research to see if I could find anyone else making gowns out of vintage ruined quilts, and found no one. And so I just pulled out these quilts and started draping them on a dress form that I had. I don't use patterns, and I don't really sketch. So I just started pinning things on my dress form and trying to figure out what worked. And I ran out of fabric. And so I went on Craigslist and found a pink and white quilt that forms the back of that dress, that's at Oceanside. And it was just perfect. It's exactly what I needed. And I actually found it online when I was traveling, and a friend of mine bought it for me.
Wow.
So it's kind of a hilarious story. And then that one I worked on about 4 months. And I'm especially fond of it because the crocheted edge at the bottom came from a friend of mine. And I just love having pieces of my friends' families as part of my artwork. I like to have the provenance of some of the quilting textiles that come my way. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, there wasn't enough of that heavy crochet work to go around the whole skirt. So that's the fun for me. It's like, oh my God, I ran out of something I can't reproduce or replace. So then I thought, what else can I fill in the rest of the edge of this gigantic skirt with? And I thought, well, I've never seen ruffles made out of quilts. And so I used up the rest of the bodice material and made ruffles. And I think it's better than if I had enough of the crochet work to go around the whole dress. So often the challenges I find by running out of fabric, not having quite enough, actually makes my work better in the long run. And that's the creative struggles that I enjoy as an artist.
Yeah, innovation from oh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Something is the mother of innovation. But yes, those restrictions and the challenges that you run into ends up creating the art. It's like you've got to get really creative to find a solution to this problem, and it becomes unique. So tell us about the new directions you're going. What's next for you?
Well, I keep making wearable art, and it's getting less wearable the more I make it. I think I really love pushing my boundaries. And so my goal is to make wearable art that is less and less wearable. And also, I have in my head very recently an idea for another solo show that I hope will all be about women in our changing role in society, kind of where we were in 1900s to now, because our habits have changed, the role of marriage has changed, the roles between men and women have changed. And so I want to explore that. And so I've already made 2 art quilts since lockdown that will fall into that category. And then the 2 dresses that I've made also, I think, are going to fit into that show. So I'm really excited about that. I haven't pitched it to anybody yet, but I would love to see a whole show with that cohesive element that has a bit of social justice thrown in, and issues of femininity. All of that gets me excited.
That is really cool. Well, keep Oma in mind when you're finishing up your pitch for that show, because we'd love to see more of your work, and I definitely want to see how things are developing with you and all the different directions you're going. Well, Marty, it has been such a pleasure talking with you and learning about your artwork and seeing just the amazing amassed materials that you have. It's you know what, your studio has kind of become a quilt in itself visually with all of the materials being gathered together.
Yeah,
So
I think I am on the edge of hoarding. Oops, I just lost the earring. But I use everything.
yes.
And so it's really difficult for me to pare down, because I see every old object as potentially wonderful. You can see my doll sculptures here.
Yeah.
Also, another direction I'm going into is making assemblages, and the dolls. I seem to be really fascinated with doll parts, and I think that might eventually, these are unfinished, but that might eventually go into some of my, could be combined with some of my wearable art.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, I hope everyone watching is able to come to the museum. We are opening to the public on September 17th. It will be open Thursdays through Sundays. And the Southern California Contemporary Quilts is going to be at the museum through February 21st. Hopefully that's plenty of time for everyone all over the world to come to the museum and see your incredible gown that is in the exhibition. Marty, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks so much for inviting me for the interview, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the show up. I've had a sneak peek of part of it up since I helped with the installation, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it in person. Yeah.
Good. I can't wait to see you in person at the museum as well. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.